Here's a video about S-verbs. S-verbs are defined as any verb that ends in S. You may have seen some of these and wondered about it, or maybe just hadn't even thought about it, but S-verbs are unique from all the other verbs. And there are many other kinds of verbs, Norwegian verbs. They're all classified, and this is just another kind of verb. At first, when I first saw them, I thought they only came after helper verbs, the auxiliary helper verbs like can, skal, mo, and bor. And they do, but they also behave differently than that. And I was curious about the rule for how to use them. And as I looked into it, it got more and more interesting. There's a little bit more to these. And it's really important to take the mystery out of these type of things when they come up in Norwegian, so that you understand what's going on. And if you're just beginning reading, or you've been reading for a while and you're curious about them, you will really this will really enhance your comprehension, because even though you may intuitively understand what they mean, you may not know exactly what you're saying, and that's what I found out in doing these. So here's a little video about S-verbs. All right, there's 4 different groups of S-verbs: passive voice or weak verbs, and or deponent. And I'll show you an example of each one of these. Reflexive, reciprocal, and inchoative or inceptive. So let's go through each of these. Passive and or deponent. A deponent verb is where the passive voice takes an active meaning. In other words, the word is sort of stuck where it shouldn't be and forced to perform. And with these S-verbs, they work really nicely when you do that. But it doesn't work for any verb. So that's why you can't just add an S onto any verb. There's only a few that really work. And so you have to collect them. You have to get to know them one by one and see how they work. And which is not hard if you do it one by one as you see them. It would be a little harder, I think, to try to memorize them all at once. But here, the verb sinus actually means seem. And when you add seem to yai, sinus, when you add that together, you're really getting seems to me is what that means. Seems to me, okay? And that's very passive, but it really flows well, and everybody understands what it means. So these S-verbs are understood. They're used very commonly, and when you say it, you're really saying that you think. Jeg synes S-verb er vanskelig. It is my opinion. They seem difficult. Okay, not after this video though. They won't be after you watch this. And one thing that came up while I was researching this is that they're from a time, they're sort of carried over from a time when people spoke in a much more passive way. I wrote old-fashioned here, but when I talked to Norwegians and asked, what is it, does that seem old-fashioned to you? They really said it's more formal. It sounds more formal, And a couple hundred years ago, the style of speaking was more formal, at least for this writing, and the people who used bokmål would speak a little bit differently, and they would probably feel comfortable with this sentence, So, but if anybody knows more about this, please leave it in the comments section. I really want to concentrate on, and these can be conjugated, so I'm not doing any of that either. I'm just going through each kind of S-verb, and so that you can kind of nail these down. Here's another finnes. That actually means to exist, and so the verb ofinne means to find. Ofinnes means to exist, and you can see it's jammed in here det finnes ingen som mener. Okay, there exists no one who believes, and just watch how these words are used. Now that you've seen this, you'll be aware of it, and they do. Sometimes they're the same. They have the kind of the same meaning as the corresponding verb that they're close to, but other times it's totally different, very, very different. But what's weird is when you read it, especially when you read it. Wow, you can kind of get it. You get what they're saying. It's so strange, that you would be able to comprehend that. Not so much when people speak, because the S, curiously enough, gets lost. Sometimes it'll get attached to the next word, so it's kind of hard to pick them out when you hear people speak, and that's why reading is really a very, very, to me it's the fast track to the language, because you can clearly understand what's going on. You can skip over, if somebody's teaching you Norwegian and they mumble, it's going to take you a long time to learn it. Reflexive S-verbs are basically the verb absorbs the reflexive pronoun. And the reflexive pronouns are a lot of fun. Once you get used to using them, it's a great way to talk. Hun liker seg I Norge. But if you wanted to say that another way, you could say hun trives I Norge. And if you have moved to Norway, I'm sure somebody has asked you, trives du I Norge? So it's spoken. Some of them are spoken all the time. And here's another example: shemis or shemisai. See, when I say that, shemis, shemisai. Or there, the S. It's a little hard to hear the difference. And you can look this up, the difference between these two. They're very similar, but it's a very subtle difference. And when you read, the more you'll notice these subtleties. You can pick out when people are being sarcastic or funny or very serious or passive even, especially now after you've seen this. You'll really know what's going on. Reciprocal S-verbs are when you have two different people or two different agents, two different things that are involved with the same verb at the same time with each other is really what it is. And so instead of saying they fought with each other, during the night, you just say de slåss om natten. And wow, that's so much easier to say. It sounds good. They flow. I mean, you can start to see why these verbs are used like that. So, just look. Once, now that you know about this, and you see these S-verbs, you can pick out, hey, okay, that's a reciprocal one or whatever. Or don't even remember, what they're called, but just know what they mean and what they're doing. That's the important thing. Like I said, I'm going to put some links in the description section, live links that you can click on and read about this if you want to. Inchoative S-verbs, viseas, all right? That's actually inchoative and reciprocal. And I always thought this meant, okay, we'll see you soon. And it does, but what it really means is we'll see each other soon. Or we'll see each other shortly, sometime soon, And that is what's going on with these. The S-verbs almost have an extra gear you can shift. They're really weird. But once you get a handle on them, it's so much easier to read. And when you say them, you know what you're saying. So these are the discoveries that you make when you learn Norwegian. And I love the history of it too. I'm not going to go too much into that, but just to know that these have kind of carried over, it's kind of cool to know. The more familiar you are with things like that about a language, the more comfortable you'll be with it. That's how it is with me anyway. So here are some of the sites. where I did research on this, aside from asking friends of mine and people I know here in Norway. But I'm also going to put some live links in, like I said, in the description, so you can click right on. There's just not enough room to put them in here. And so vi ses. Lykke till next time, and ha det bra.